KATL Live.
Welcome back to KATL Live. I'm your host, Mike Mintz. Samantha Malenovsky, floodplain administrator here in Mound City, sitting in with us, as well as Dannette Kramer. And Samantha, we'll start with you. Is it Sam? Do you prefer Sam?
Sam will work fine.
Sam would be just fine. All right, so we're going to start with you. What's the latest on the floodplain in Mound City?
Well, right now we are, of course, doing a flood assessment study, which was approved before council, and KLJ, which is Carter, Lee, and Jackson out of Billings, is working on that study right now. And we are also looking at getting grants to help pay for that study. We recently just applied for a community block development grant. Also, what's going on is there's a lot of things happening in Washington, D.C. with the flood insurance and Biggert Waters.
So now how much of that is going to affect us?
Well, right now nothing is in place, and
Sure.
so we're still working underneath the original Biggert Waters the way it's been passed. Right now, how that could affect us is people may be able to keep their subsidized premium, flood insurance premium, for a little bit longer if it does pass and something happens with it in Washington. So I've been working a lot with Testers people and Congressman Daines and Box's people to try and get the word out to them on how Mound City is being affected by this.
Now let's go back. KLJ, they're currently working on...
It's a flood assessment study,
Okay.
and what that is looking at the options Mound City has to do something with the large floodplain map that we have, whether that be some sort of flood control structure like a levee or a flood wall, or other options that we have, whether we want to challenge the map or continue on the way we are.
Now, obviously, all of these options cost money at some point.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's what the assessment study will look at too, is how much it would cost, how much the savings could be for us.
How early are we right now in the stages of getting this assessment done?
The assessment, I'm going to say, I'm going to give them a little extra time that
Sure.
it'll probably take the study. I'm going to say 9 months, but we will be updating the citizens so that they'll be able to know what's going on, and we do have scheduled meetings that we will have. We'll, of course, let people know when those meetings are so that we can get their input on what they think about the situation.
Absolutely. Some questions that I've been getting leading up to this interview, because this is, we talked about having you guys on here and stuff like that, and some people have been interested in some stuff, and one of the main questions I've been getting is there any chance that the map could be changed? The
Yes.
current flood map. Okay.
And that's what the entire purpose of the flood assessment study is. Is
Okay.
if we put up, we're not just going to put up a flood wall and say, okay, the map's not going to change. We're going to spend all these millions of dollars to put up the flood wall is to change the map.
Okay. So that's the goal of it.
Yes.
Now, I guess let me ask more specifically. Is there any chance that we can change the map without doing a flood wall or anything to that effect?
We could challenge the map. We could
Okay.
challenge the technical data of the map, but we wouldn't get as many structures and people out of the floodplain if we did a flood control structure.
Gotcha. Now, is there any relief? I know the flood insurance, I guess we'll bring in Dannette here. So now, Dannette, there's a lot of rumors and there's a lot of fear-mongering, I would say, as far as like some astronomical numbers in relation to where flood insurance is going to go.
There are. Right now, new policies and new purchases of properties in the old 100-year floodplain.
Right.
And those are the homes that are, for the most part, north of the Milwaukee tracks. That's the old 100-year floodplain. Those policies are the ones being affected the most. And on a new purchase or a new policy that has to be put in force, what's required even to get a quote is an elevation certificate.
Sure.
There are a few instances, and that's through the National Flood Insurance Program. There are a few instances, as it's case-by-case basis, that people have been able to purchase a CAT policy,
Okay.
which is private insurance, and the rate is extremely low.
Lower.
Lower. Well, actually, extremely. I mean,
It's really
compared
good.
to even the premium prior to October 1,
Oh, really?
when these changes went into effect, they're even lower than what someone possibly had in effect last year.
So now how come not everybody's jumping on that?
Well, it's a, like I said, it's a case-by-case
Oh,
basis.
it is case, okay.
They're accepting policies or applications, and then they're not. And as far as, I mean, there's only a few agents in town that I believe that even offer or have this CAT coverage available to them. So.
Okay. How much research would you tell, the general public to do about this for themselves? Finding out about flood insurance and having questions to ask their agents, I would say.
Well, I think they need to know exactly how is it going to affect them now, what's going to happen. Of course, when and if they go to sell their home, Of course, back before our map changed back in 2010, there was a lot of people. We were told that, hey, if you get a policy in force, you could grandfather or transfer this policy as long as you keep it in force.
Right.
You could transfer it to a new purchaser.
Right.
And
how's that working out?
The rules have changed.
Yeah, that's the federal government for you, by the way. So
Yeah,
they can change it any time.
And so, but I would still say before someone actually truly cancels their policy or lets it
Sure.
go, I mean, you can't. They should check with their agent. Why should I keep this policy? What benefit is it to me? And so the rule, like I said, the rules have changed. And as far as who's required to obtain a flood policy, it's all mortgage. If you have a mortgage on your home, it's all driven by the mortgage company.
Yeah.
It's a requirement. So.
And I guess that's something we should, kind of touch on real quick. Is some people might not understand this, but if you're within the 100 flood or 100-year floodplain, you are required to have the flood insurance policy if you have a mortgage on your house.
Correct.
So if you have to have it, you have to have it. If you don't have to have it, I don't even think you can get it, can you?
Yes, you can.
You still can?
You
Okay.
still can get it.
But why waste your money there? So.
Yeah. And then the other policy that's available, and it's the people who were not in the prior 100-year floodplain. They were
Okay.
in the 500-year.
Sure.
But with the new map, they became part of the 100-year floodplain.
So how does this affect them?
Well, at this point, if they sell the property or we have someone that buys a new home or whatever in that old 500-year floodplain, they are still eligible for a preferred risk policy, which is a lot. You can get a fairly high limit of coverage for a reasonable lower amount of premium. At this point, the Bigger Waters Act has not decided, or they don't really know what's going to happen with those policies. Will they convert to a standard and people will have to get an elevation certificate? That
Sure.
hasn't been revealed to us yet.
So that's still kind of in limbo
It
right
is,
now.
it
But
is.
for the moment, that hasn't been official or anything.
Right.
So it just doesn't sound like the sky's falling. I mean, there's obviously it's going to cost some people more money to do some of this flood insurance stuff. But I think that there was some really bad rumors about who is going to be affected by it. So.
Well, and I do have an example of a quote that I did on a property,
Yeah.
and this would be one that's in the north of the tracks, or the
Okay.
old 100-year
The old
floodplain.
100.
So before October 1, which was kind of the effective date of all these rate changes, I was looking at a property for $73,000 coverage on the dwelling with a
Okay.
$2,000 deductible, no contents coverage. Prior to October 1, the premium was $800 and some dollars.
Okay.
After October 1, with the elevation certificate, that premium is $3,900.
That's a considerable difference.
So there is
Yeah.
and that's based on that particular home was -7 BFE, below flood elevation. So it's based on the lowest floor in the home.
Gotcha. Okay, so if you have a basement, that's where things kind of get you. then.
Yes.
So, I guess we'll bring Samantha back in here now. Is the city doing anything to kind of counteract some of those costs for people?
We are, right now, Miles City is part of the community rating system. And what that system does is we do outreach projects with the public. We have plans in place in case an emergency happened. There's a lot of different activities the city can do, and we've been working very hard on that. And that can give people a discount on their premium. Right now, Miles City, for the people that have not a subsidized rate, but just a regular flood insurance policy, they get a 5% discount. We were able to do some work and get some extra points, and so starting May 1st of next year, people will start to receive a 10% discount after their policy renews after that May deadline. We are continuing to work on it. Right now, we have adopted a program for public information. Dannette Kramer happens to be part of that group too, on doing outreach projects to get more points so that we can get a better discount for people that had to pay flood insurance.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely huge for people to get, because that's free money.
Yes, it
When you
is.
break it down, so.
And so we're working really hard to do that. Along with that comes a lot of stuff that the city needs to keep track of, but that's what we're here for, is to do our best to help people get some sort of discount on this.
We're just scratching the surface, guys. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We got more to talk about with Floodplain Administrator Samantha Malenovsky and Dannette Kramer here on 770 KATL Live.
Live.
Welcome back here on KATL Live. We're talking floodplain, flood insurance, all the information that you guys can possibly need about what's going on in Miles City with the current floodplain. We're talking, of course, Samantha Malenovsky, Sam, from the actual floodplain administrator here in Miles City, and also Dannette Kramer, one of the insurance agents, and giving us some good information. Let's get back into it. Samantha, during the break, we were kind of talking about some of the unique points about the floodplain. And I guess one of the questions I had for you is KMJ, is that right?
KLJ.
KLJ. So when they come through, there's obviously some options that are going to be available to us. And I guess at what point do we have to make a decision?
Well, it's kind of up to the city on when we want to make a decision, because we're not in any means in a certain time frame. Of course, people want to get stuff done as soon as they can because of the flood insurance. But we're not on like a set time frame that we have to get something done like right away, or else we can't get anything.
Okay.
So we're not on any sort of FEMA timeline or Army Corps of Engineer timeline. We're not on any sort of timeline there. So people will be able to discuss this, and of course this will be a big council meeting when it's finally decided what option to decide.
It'll be out there and people will be involved. One of the other things we were talking about during the break was the floodway. So what's the difference between the floodway and the floodplain? So
first of all, I'll give a quick definition on what the floodway is. The floodway is an area designated to be able to hold the fastest, swiftest water with the highest velocity. That's what it's designated for that. Right now, our regulations, these are FEMA and state regulations, that you cannot build a new structure, do an addition onto your house in the floodway. The floodplain is a different story. You can do some more stuff there. Basically, it'd be easier to tell you what you can do in the floodway.
Sure, okay.
Which would be you could do like a carport. I'm trying to think of other things people would want to do out there. You could do picnic benches and things that can be done. An RV park could be done. Okay. You could put RVs there. There is stipulations that still go with that, but it is something that can be done. In your flood fringe, you have there's a lot more options out there. If you were doing a residential home, you have to elevate it to base flood elevation plus 2 feet. And for a commercial building, you would have to flood proof it to that.
Okay.
Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that goes with that. So if a person's looking into that, please come see me and we'll talk about it. But those are kind of the differences between the two. Is the floodway is supposed to be open. There's not supposed to be buildings on it, which of course we have quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of buildings there. So let's talk real quick about LOMA. Are you the best person, Sam, or should I talk with Dannette about this?
I think we can both kind of
handle this. Now what does LOMA stand for?
LOMA is a letter of map amendment.
Okay. And
Miles City has had a lot of residents get that. And what they are is the federal government saying that they agree that, yes, your home is out of the floodplain.
Okay.
There's 2 different types of letter of map amendments that are basically out there. One is you can get a letter of map amendment on your entire property, which means your entire property is at or above the base flood elevation. There's a letter of map amendment you can get on your structure. That is stating that the lowest adjacent grade next to that structure is at or above base flood elevation.
Okay.
The thing to remember with a letter map amendment on a structure is it's only good for that structure that was there when the letter map amendment was done. So if you put an addition on it, that addition still has to follow floodplain regulations.
So now to get a LOMA, how do you go about that?
You need an engineering firm to do it. It has to be done by a licensed land surveyor. I believe an architect could do it, or a professional engineer. They have to stamp it. They send it off to FEMA for you. FEMA approves it. They have about 60 days to do it. And you'll get a piece of paper back from FEMA saying that, yes, you're out, or no, you did not get removed.
And Dannette, if you are out, that affects you pretty positively, I guess, for flood insurance.
Well, actually, yes, because you, at that point, are out, so the mortgage company would not be, you would not be required.
Right.
Because you're out at this point. And so it would be up to you whether you want to continue your policy or reduce it or just cancel it altogether.
Absolutely. Now, if you go through the process, it's probably going to cost you money. It's not free to get a LOMA. No. But it's probably worth it in the end if it does work out for you. So.
Well, yes, because if your flood insurance, you would have to pay it for the life of your mortgage. And so if you have a 15, 20-year mortgage, and the premiums are continually going up. And,
sure, yeah.
And so if you look at the cost to complete the LOMA, which is right around
$500. Well,
Well, by the time you get the survey done and the filing, you're going to be right around $800 to complete that. Well, that could be 1 or 2 years worth of premiums, depending on what type of, where you're at in your policy. So for the life of your mortgage, $800 a year, that's pretty good savings.
It's expensive. Let's also talk a little bit about, if you're in the old 500 year floodplain, you are under a preferred risk right now.
Correct.
So now, but there's a potential of losing that, is that right?
Under the Bigger Waters Act, if you currently have a preferred risk policy, extension policy, you can keep that policy. The Bigger Waters at this point hasn't decided, other than there's some rate increases out there, but they haven't really decided what they're going to do with those policies. If they'll have to get an elevation certificate, then the premium's going to be changed.
Gotcha.
What's going to happen there. But the way it stands right now, someone buys a property that's in the old 500 year, they are still eligible for that preferred risk policy.
They are, okay.
So but one thing, I guess, if someone, their preferred risk policy lapses for some reason, it doesn't get paid, the only way, and you still have to have that because of your mortgage, that person would be required to get the elevation certificate, and their premium would be based on the lowest floor in their home. And so if you need maximum coverage, which on a home is $250,000, and you're -7 or lower BFE, those premiums are really, really high.
Now, when we say -7, that's what, 7 feet below?
7 feet below base flood elevation. So base flood elevation is kind of that imaginary line.
Which you have to pay for.
Which you have to pay for the surveyor to come out and...
The elevation
And real
survey,
quick,
so.
base flood elevation varies all over town.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
not a set number.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of questions on that.
Absolutely. Ladies, just so much information is probably, I know for people out there, it's probably like trying to get a drink from a fire hose. But, Flood Awareness Day, I did not know that. So let's talk about that real quick.
We do have a Flood Awareness Day set up in April, and I'm going to be honest right now, the date escapes me, but we will be letting people know what it is.
Sure.
And for the Flood Awareness Day, what we're trying to do, and this is also a good outreach program, so we get points for this to help with our community rating score. We are going to have one there. We're going to try and have KLJ there to give us an update on what's going on with the study. We will also have insurance agents there talking about that. I'm hoping to get FEMA down. I'm also hoping to have the state here and a large group of people just to talk about floodplain, and people can come down and ask a lot of questions and be part of some of the classes that we have.
That just sounds like there's some great information that people can get from that.
It's going to be chock full of a lot of people.
A lot of people probably are listening to this and they're saying, well, that doesn't directly affect me, or I need to know more about what's going to affect me as far as flood insurance goes. You guys are the people to talk to, right? I mean, Samantha, how easy is it to contact you?
Really easy. Just call City Hall. The number up there is 234-3493. I'm usually always there 8 to 5, and I love when people come up and ask questions because I want people to be informed about it as opposed to being scared of what's going to happen.
And Dannette, talk to your insurance agent. I mean,
talk to your own agent. If people want to look at the maps, which I've had people ask about, Samantha has the old map, the new map. Our office at Mitchell Agency, 602 Pleasant, we have the old map, the new map, which I think most insurance agents do.
Sure.
So contact your agent, contact your realtor, contact your mortgage lender. I mean, and those are a lot of resources out there for people just to get informed on.
The bottom line that I wanted to get out of this, and I think we kind of covered it, is there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of fear. But the reality is, right now, it's not as bad as you're probably hearing it. There's some people that are going to end up paying some money. But like Samantha said, there's some stuff in Congress right now that could get passed.
Yeah.
And could change things too. So. And
that's one of my things I'm going to ask the people of Miles City and Custer County and whoever else is listening in Radio Land. The Senator Tester's office has asked for examples of how flood insurance has been affecting them. So I would love for people to write letters. They can either send it directly to Senator Tester's office, or they can even bring it to me at City Hall. They can mail it to City Hall, 17 South 8th Street, and I will make sure those letters get off to Tester's people, because he wants to be able to understand what's going on and present this to the Senate so they understand how Miles City is being affected.
It's hard to ignore a lot of people.
Yes.
So get out there and do your thing, man. Make it happen so that so that we don't end up having these astronomical numbers and stuff like that happen. Thanks so much, Samantha Malenovsky, floodplain administrator, of course, Dannette Kramer. Thanks, ladies, so much for being on the show today. So
Thanks for having us.
we'll probably have you on in the future, talk more about the floodplain as things develop. So it's an ever-evolving situation, it seems like.
KATL Live.